Good evening, friends. We are back. It is time to set this draft order so everybody can get off my damn back about it. The draft is 5 months from today. No better time to figure out when people are picking. With me, as always, my co-host, Dan Metzger. I'm Ryan, Part-Time Ninjas. He's Dan if you're new to the show. This is about our league, the Maslin Fantasy League, which is now heading into its 18th year of existence, I believe. Though we're not allowed to call it the Maslin Fantasy League right now.
Yes, we are. Screw that. I don't care what you call them. You did not get approval from the founding fathers to make that deal. No, we're not.
Let's start with Dan. How are you?
I'm great. I'm here to talk fantasy baseball. I just had a draft. I got Matt Kemp. I'm pretty excited. He's on his third home run already this season.
All right. And then we have, in the league's history, 18th year, I believe we're heading into, our first ever back-to-back champion, my little brother, whose team name is Call Me Dad because you're all my sons, after putting the whooping on the league, having had 0 draft picks the previous year. He lives and dies by the trade. Taylor, how you doing, buddy?
I'm just here so I can see where people are drafting. I need to know who I'm trading for at this point.
There you go.
Are you looking to trade for draft picks? Or is your plan, I don't want draft picks?
I might never draft in this league again.
I hope that's the case.
I might absolutely be okay.
You will never win again. Listen, it only works one time.
No, I'm telling you. No.
It only worked because you had Justin Jefferson and someone gave you some stupid stuff for him. It'll never happen again.
That trade was a very good trade. It actually helped me in the long run. I mean, did it not?
I agree. I agree with you. It did.
They helped me. Like, he wasn't going to win me a championship. He couldn't do it for Steve. So why was he going to win me that championship?
Yeah, he certainly
on my
didn't.
team.
What I'm saying is you don't have anybody left on your team that can get those kind of resources back for you. Is what I'm saying.
When you trade the way I do, I mean,
your team is ain't nobody going to do that for Justin Fields.
I went back and got Justin Fields. He won me a championship. Do you not remember last year?
I'm talking about next year. Nothing I say today will have anything to do with last year. I am moved on. You should too.
Nope. I'm going to ride it just like I did the one before, and I'm going to win it again.
Our fan is here. Nate says hi. Nate, you're right. You're the only one watching right now. Nobody dropped out of the league. The spot is yours as soon as someone drops out. We're here celebrating Taylor's championship. Taylor, what Dan was getting mad about earlier, for everybody who doesn't know, is I made a joke with Taylor that if he pulls off winning a championship, having no draft picks, that I would name the league after him. Or maybe you said that I had to do it, and I agreed with it. But the long and short is I agreed to it. So the league is, as of this point, called the Taylor Cruz Fantasy League, I believe. And I made his profile, the league's profile picture, his picture. So this is Taylor's league, and we're all just living in it. Taylor, I believe you have a little hardware you want to show off before we get into the meat of the show. My man with the back-to-back championship.
That's 2022 and 2023. Y'all can get on that level one day. Promise.
Someday.
Stop living in the past.
So I made the decision we are going to focus this show on the lottery teams. And so the teams that did not make the playoffs, I figure you guys had enough not hearing about your teams last year. So this year we're going to talk a little bit more about them. I forgot to bring up last year's. I just want to get the records so we can talk about them in reverse order. So obviously we're going to start with Kenny's team. Kenny had a rough year, 3-11 when the season was all said and done, was not one of the bottom 3 scorers, and that actually cost him a little bit in the lottery. Looking at the lottery, Kenny actually only pulled 1 point of luck because he had 2 wins, which got him a point of luck. And then he beat a playoff team, which got him 2 points of luck, but he forgot to set a roster 1 week or didn't set one on purpose. So that bumped him down 1 point. So Kenny comes into the lottery, worst team in the league, not only by record, not by points, but with just 1 point of luck. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look over his roster. I have his potential keepers as, I put JR and now I'm blanking on who the fuck JR is. Because it's certainly not the person in this league, JR. It was supposed to say JT. Jonathan Taylor, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. He also has Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs, DK Metcalf, and TJ Hawkinson. So I have him keeping JT, Olave, JSN. When you hear that team and then you look, he has his own first and Metzger's first. Both are in the lottery. How are you feeling about Kenny heading in the next year, Metzger?
I think he's got a good start. I mean, it depends on what else he does. He's always trying to trade everybody. Says if that ends up happening, if he ends up getting more draft picks, depends on what he does with those draft picks too. I mean, he's in a good spot. He should be able to have a better year next year.
Taylor?
I like to point out, that Kenny pretty much supplied my championship team last year.
So he
helped
already
me out
has a
tremendously.
right?
So he knows what he's doing. So I think as long as Kenny just quits making so many trades, unless they're with me, he has a good shot. I have his keepers at JT, Olave, and JSN, Hawk, or Metcalf. I didn't even include Downs in there. If it was me, I'd probably go with JSN just because of the youth part of it. But if not, I'm probably going with Hawkinson just because tight ends are hard to get. But Kirk Cousins is out of there, and it could be a bad show for him there.
Yeah, definitely changes the game up in Minnesota. Also for Justin Jefferson with potentially Sam Darnold at quarterback. Next up.
Oh, real quick. I think he actually keeps Richardson at quarterback.
Oh, you do think he keeps
so?
Richardson?
Yeah, he's a big fan of his. He was very excited when he got him on his team when someone cut him, and he said just so he had him on the injured reserve for this year. So I fully expect him to keep him.
I think he really likes having people that he knows little Stevie will go after too, though. So I wouldn't be surprised to possibly see some sort of movement there. A little cult to Stevie. I know he liked him.
Next up, we got Rob P. 4-10 last year. Again, didn't have a terrible season of scoring, but did score 30 fewer points than Kenny. Schedule just did not break his way. He comes into this thing with 6 points of luck. Actually came out of the luck draw really, really well. 2 points for the wins that he put down. Had the high score one week, which I believe actually was week 17, which is pretty incredible that he pulled a point of luck on the very final week where he could. High score in week 17, got 2 wins in the losers bracket, beat a playoff team, and was one of the three teams with the most points scored against them. He just had some bad luck when it comes to that draw, but he is tied for first place with Stevie and Phil for the most luck. When you look at his keepers, you're looking at, I have it as Lamar Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and A.J. Brown, though he does have George Pickens, Dalton Kincaid, Zay Flowers, and Zach Charbonnet. I think his keepers are pretty clear. He has his own first and Stevie's first, again, both in the lottery, so he could come out tonight looking very, very good, Taylor.
I believe it's Lamar, AJ, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, just 3 top positions that you want to cover.
I know he was trying to move Lamar a lot last year, though, so I don't know if that's something he's looking to hang on to coming into this year.
I was going to say, I guess this year we'll find out if he's more a quarterback or a wide receiver type of guy, what it is. Does he put a value on quarterback like that? A quarterback like Lamar, kind of always holds that value just with the potential he has. But
the rushing,
I would go Lamar, AJ, and Jahmyr Gibbs. That would be mine.
Metzger, how you feel about Rob P after one season in the league with what went down for him and how he's looking heading into next year?
I mean, he seems active. He's engaged. I like him in the league. Here's how this offseason is going to go for him. Those are going to be his 3 keepers. He's going to put them on the trade block and try and make moves, but no one's going to wow him, and so he's going to end up keeping those 3.
Yeah,
he likes to put his guys out there just to see what he can get, and if you don't wow him and over make sure he wins the trade, he's not making the trade with you.
There you go. And then we move on to Eric, the other newcomer. He did have a pretty bad season scoring, 1,330 points, 75 behind Rob, but he won 5 games. The schedule shook out for him. Looking at his luck, he comes into this with 3 points of luck. He got 2 points for the wins, and he beat a playoff team, which happened in the last week of the season where he pulled off that playoff team win, if I remember correctly. So he comes into this whole thing with 3 points of luck. He is the only team on this list who I don't think has an alternate keeper. I think he has to keep C.J. Stroud, Sam Laporta, Rashee Rice. I didn't see another keepable player on his roster, Metzger.
I agree. It was funny because looking back, last year we were debating if he should keep Stroud. I think he absolutely should keep Stroud.
I was gonna bring that up that I don't remember who did the show with us where we were not sure if Stroud was a keeper. I think that answered itself.
You might not have been sure. I was sure in that show.
I'm almost positive you said no, and now I'm going to go look it
up.
up.
Go back and look it up.
I'm gonna find it because I think you said no.
I think you're wrong.
Okay, you better hope I'm wrong.
No, I agree with that on his keepers.
And I'm right there with you. That's all I see.
And then he has his own first, which is in the lottery. He also has my first, which will be the 12th overall pick. So he's walking out of today with 12th and a possible pick in the lottery. And you know what, guys? I think it's time for round 1 of the lottery. Let's go ahead and get it up on the screen. So just so you guys are familiar, Metzger explained this to me, that this is how hockey does their lottery. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. I don't want to cover anything up. We'll just put the whole thing up on the screen. So hockey does their lottery that the first 3 picks are determined by a lottery. So whoever wins this race will have the first pick of the draft. You can see the settings that I have set up here. I did test this, but I did not test it with any of our people. I didn't want to jinx anybody as the race was going. So again, this is race number 1. And
So
we are going to go.
After we see who wins this one, we'll take them out and run another race for second. Take that person out, run a race for third.
You cannot take people out of the race. So
you know what I mean? They just won't count. They
don't count. Exactly. And if they win a second race, it just goes to the person in second place. We're not going to make this more convoluted than it needs to be. It's already convoluted enough. Your names are on the screen. Metzger is at the top. Greg is in the second spot. Eric in third. Phil in fourth. Kenny in fifth. Stevie in sixth. Mott's in seventh. Rob P in eighth. That's just your spot on the screen. I randomized it a bunch of times, but you will stay in that spot for all 3 races. This is for the first pick, and then we'll talk some more about your teams. I am clicking Start Rush now, and the first pick will be determined here in just a moment, except I don't have the right screen shared. Hold on one second. There we go. I just had to click share this tab instead. So the race has started. So these are mildly boring. I don't know if we want to commentate them. It takes about a minute for these races to fill themselves.
Rob P is off there.
I say he's jumping off to an early lead. Phil's catching up, and Eric. So just as a reminder to everyone involved, the Kenny is obviously rooting for himself and Metzger. Rob P is rooting for himself and little Stevie. Everybody else here is rooting for themselves except for Stevie and Metzger, who do not have their own picks.
Traded them. Doing it. Metz is doing it. Let's go, boys.
I say it's looking good for Rob P. It's looking good for Metzger, but it is looking very much
it's down
like
to Stevie
Kenny
and
or Rob P is going to have the first pick.
I think it's Rob P.
And Rob P has the first pick of the MFL draft. So
congratulations, buddy.
I like it. All
right, so guys, quick recap on Rob P. That's Lamar, Jahmyr Gibbs, AJ Brown with some options. And then Stevie's pick will be determined later on in the show because it doesn't matter what he did in this race. So Rob now has the first pick with those keepers. Got to feel pretty good about that, right, guys?
I'm just glad to see Kenny's guys finally finishing the race.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I like it. I'm happy for him. That's pretty dope. You know, I mean, he made some sacrifices this year. You know, I feel like he actually had the worst luck in the league, you know, for having the most luck. I feel like he got robbed a few weeks where he could have been a playoff team. He had a real good team there for a little bit, and it was just weird how it played out for him.
And just a reminder, the worst that Kenny could end up with here if he does not win any of these is still the 4th pick based on his own picks. So that's just the way it goes. And if Rob P wins the next race, the second place team will be the winner of the next race, if that makes sense. Moving along with our team evaluations, next up was Stevie. Stevie, who spent half the year not even sure if he was going to be returning to the league, finishes 5-9, did quite well in scoring, 1492. Looked like a playoff team for a lot of the year. His keepers are getting up there in age with the exception of one. I have him keeping Barkley, Devontae Adams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, though he does have Trey McBride and Jaden Reed, who are both interesting prospects. Taylor, what do you think when you look at Stevie's team, knowing that he also does not have a first-round pick? All right, I apologize. He has JR's first-round pick. It's the 10th overall. It's just not in the lottery. Yep, that's my mistake.
I had him with Amon-Ra, Saquon, and Devontae, and then barring any trades or whatever, I just kind of threw in Jaden Reed and Hollywood there. And, you know, maybe he feels like keeping somebody on the Chiefs team with Patrick Mahomes if he gets a couple good trade offers, you know. I know he's always liked Hollywood, so something tells me he's not going to be scared away from him with Pat Mahomes as his quarterback. So, I mean, obviously he might be in the trade market to see if he can move one of them up age guys, but I like his keepers. They're not bad.
No, I think it makes sense. And then, like I said, the 10th overall pick's not like it's a terrible pick, Metzger.
No, he's in a good spot. I don't know what the rest of his draft looks like, but those are decent keepers like Barkley and Philly. I mean, I don't unless he makes a trade, I don't think there's much debate for who his keepers are.
He did a lot of selling last year, and then I think he had to like buy back. It just was a season that didn't really play in his favor. And then
he bought and then tried to sell.
Yeah, that moves us to old Rob, Mr. Steak Esquire. Not a great season, 1370 on the total points, 6-8 record. Schedule didn't break his way. He was one of the teams fighting for a playoff spot, but needed a lot of different things to happen for him, and it didn't happen. Picking his keepers was interesting, and I'm going to actually ask you guys first. Rob made the conscious decision last year, Trevor Lawrence over Josh Allen. Now, obviously, he sold Josh Allen and got things for him, but he did that to keep Trevor Lawrence. When I look at his team now after a disappointing season for Trevor Lawrence, I don't have Lawrence as a keeper, Metzger. I'm giving him Tank Dell, Travis Etienne, and I think he's going to go Devonta Smith. How do you feel about that?
No, that's exactly what I think he's going to do. I think he's pretty upset with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence will ever step foot on the Mr. Steak roster ever again. And so I think those are the smart keepers from his team. I mean, I love Tank Dell.
Yeah, you're a Tank Dell guy. Taylor, do you think Lawrence deserves a second chance in a league where having an elite quarterback can make all the difference, but is Trevor Lawrence elite?
I just know Rob somewhat likes quarterbacks, so I had his at ETN, Devonta Smith, and then it was literally between T-Law, Kirk Cousins, and Tank Dell, just because I don't know what his interest is on keeping
I didn't even notice
a quarterback always.
So.
But, I mean, I know I've kept quarterbacks. I kept 2 last year, got me a championship. You know, it's not a bad way to go.
The most important question is, at what point does he bring Brian back on as a co-manager for the 3 weeks before he does something stupid that makes him mad again?
I'm certain Brian is done with this league at this point. I just don't think it's going to be a problem. And then, Dan, that brings us to your team. So obviously not the season you were hoping. You were fighting for a playoff spot. You tied with Rob going 6-8. However, you scored 202 more fantasy points than Rob's team did. So the schedule did you absolutely no favors. I forgot to mention, Rob has 5 points of luck going on right now. And I also, when we were doing this, so Stevie has 6 points of luck. I want to make sure I mention this. 2 points from his wins, 1 for a high score, 1 for 2 wins in the losers bracket, 1 for beating a playoff team. And he was also one of the teams that had the most points scored against him. Rob is sitting at 5 points, 3 points for wins, 1 point for high score, 1 point for beating a playoff team. So that's Rob. And then Dan, we come to your team. As I mentioned, a lot of points, not enough wins to make the playoffs. I have your keepers as Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, but you have a nice roster. Keenan Allen, James Cook, and Aaron Jones sitting on his bench, Taylor. Going back, Rob does have his own first, which is in the lottery, but he also has Horvath's first at 13th overall. Dan does not have a lottery pick. He has Taylor's first at 14th overall. But Taylor, when you look at that team, stacked at wide receiver, obviously acquired Joe Burrow. How do you feel about Dan's team with his 5 points of luck?
I had his 5 at Puka, Joe Burr, and Keenan Allen. And, I mean, you always have a chance to be in the playoffs, Dan. It's just always the luck that don't go your way. So, I mean, it's never a question on if you're going to draft good. You know what you're doing. It's just sometimes, just don't go your way, man.
Interestingly enough, Dan, you did not have a high score at any point last season. You got your points on wins, 2 wins in the losers bracket, and you beat a playoff team for your 5 points of luck. So how do you feel? I mean, I guess watching a draft lottery that you have literally absolutely nothing to do with.
It's really hard to have the high score when you're always playing someone who is having their best week of the season.
Yeah, that tends to make things a bit more challenging.
Yes.
All right, guys. Oh, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I mean, I'm actually not sold on my 3 keepers yet. Hopefully, I'm going to still make some more moves. If anybody wants a quarterback, got Jordan Love. I think he looked really good at the end of last year. So,
yeah, I didn't list Love because I know you would never keep Love over Burrow. But that's a good point. There's some trade bait out there.
If anybody would want Puka Nacua, I know he's not really high valued in this league. Someone actually cut him at one point. So I have that guy available as well. If someone wants to come take him off my hands.
It's never about how right I was.
It's always about
how wrong I was. All right, guys, we're moving on to the next round of the draft. Everything exactly the same as it was last time. This is for the second pick of the draft. And as we mentioned, the teams that we just talked about, Stevie with 6 points of luck, Rob Motts with 5 points of luck, and Dan with 5 points of luck. Obviously, Rob P has already won the first pick of the draft. If he were to win this race, his specific character, it would move over to the second place. And we have to remember, he also has Stevie's pick. So it was he who won the first race. He is definitely rooting for Stevie, who finished second, to go ahead and win this race. Metzger jumping out to an early lead, Stevie in that second place. So if Stevie were to win this race, Rob P would have the first two picks of our draft. However, I was going to say, things are a-changing. And so obviously for Kenny, it would be very interesting for Metzger to win this race, because then Kenny could end up with the second and the fourth pick at worst and still have a chance at the third. This is looking very much like Rob Motts' race here, and I cannot remember. Motts has his own pick, so this would be Rob moving up to the second pick of the draft if he pulls off the win. It's looking great, though. Greg is making a late push. Rob takes the win.
Excellent.
That is going to be let me get this up here. That is going to be another draft pick solidified, with Rob Motts coming in with the second pick. And as I mentioned before, he also has Horvath's pick, giving him now second and 13th. The third pick is still up for grabs.
When Motts actually goes back and watches this episode in August, he's going to be really excited for that second pick.
He's going to be shocked, though. I'll be setting the draft order as soon as the show is over. That brings us...
It's off season. He has that turned off. He ain't going to notice it.
That's true. All right. That brings us to the last two teams we're going to talk about. Last year, Phil, with a historic 13-1 season, collapses to a 6-8 season, though he did score 1,671 points. That is 100 more points than Dan, and that is also the second most points by a singular point. He beat Horvath. That is the second most points scored in the league last year. So another guy where the schedule did not work out well for him. He does have his own first-round pick. That is his only pick in the first round of the draft. He is one of the folks who is tied with 6 points of luck. Phil is the winner of our best record or our best roster lineup. And I'm going to explain how that works. So Phil got 3 points for his wins, 1 point for a weekly high score, 1 point for having the most points scored against him. And he picked up a point. I took on Sleeper. You can see the max amount of points you could have had this year if you had set a perfect lineup every week. So I took the amount you scored, divided it by the amount that you could have scored. And whoever had the highest percentage, the best lineup setter, got a point of luck. This is all available in the league doc for anybody wondering. Phil came in with 92.5% of his most accurate. There was one other team above 92%. That was Rob P. Bunch of teams at 91%, but Phil got that point. When you look at his keepers, Metzger, your buddy, there are definitely some interesting keepers at this point. Nick Chubb and Stephon Diggs are who I have to go along with DJ Moore. Chubb coming off of that just devastating knee injury. Stephon Diggs may not even be in Buffalo. He's an angry guy. Now, he does have Dak Prescott if he wants to go the quarterback route. He also has Alvin Kamara if he wants to hold on to another aging running back. What are your thoughts on Phil's team? He has that one pick in the lottery. He has a chance now to land the third pick of the draft, but if he does not land the third pick, it will be the 7th pick.
I mean, I think he absolutely is going to keep Dak. I mean, Dak is the only reason he made that run at the end of the season, making that trade for him, and Dak got hot, scoring multiple 40-point games. I don't look at Nick Chubb as a possible keeper. You don't know if he's going to play until November or December, and when he does come back, at what percentage is he coming back? I mean, I don't think that's someone you can keep.
I think that's fair.
So I hope he keeps him. I absolutely hope he does. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's the wrong move. He'll probably do it. But if I'm looking at his team, it has to be Prescott, Diggs, and Moore would be my 3 for him.
Prescott and the 2 wide receivers. How do you feel about that, Taylor? Especially, how do you feel, I guess, Nick Chubb? You're a big Browns guy. You think he's going to bounce back? He was a rumored cut candidate. It appears that the Browns are not going to have to do that. So.
Yeah, you can't do that to Nick Chubb. If they do, that's some shady shit. But I think Nick Chubb comes back solid as ever. I mean, it's just who he is. He's a grinder. But is he worth a keeper this year? Probably not. And I honestly didn't even notice the whole Dak Prescott thing. I actually put Kyle Pitts in there just because tight end, Kirk Cousins going there.
Kirk Cousins there now.
Know.
It's funny. I'm such a Kyle Pitts hater. I'll say I'm such a Kyle Pitts hater at this point. I didn't even list him as one of the options.
I don't blame you. I was skeptical to name him as one, but it was Diggs, Moore, and Chubb or Pitts, and I didn't put Dak in there, just not even thinking about it. But definitely probably Dak over Pitts. But Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, does he do something? Does he ball out?
And that brings us to the
I agree with what you're saying. I think Kyle Pitts should be better next year, but he's just never been great to the point that can you really count on it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes it a hard keep for me.
Well, it's very much a hard keep when you look at how far he fell in the draft last year. I ended up taking him because he just kept falling. And so right there shows that he doesn't have enough value in our league because nobody's going to pick him up in the draft. So because like Dak, with the way our league is going, the right team would take Dak in the first round. I think Phil took Dak in the first round.
No, Phil made a trade for him halfway through the season last year.
Oh, that's right. That was one of those ones where
literally he traded for him the week he was playing me.
Yeah, it was Darren. Darren had him because Darren had Dak and somebody else, if I remember correctly. So, which brings us to Greg. Greg going into his second, maybe third year in the league, finished 7-7. He was tied for a playoff spot with Terry. Terry got in on 3 points scored more than Greg. So Terry gets into the playoffs on a technicality over Greg, gets those 3 extra points. Greg also only pulls 3 points of luck because he openly told all of us something I found out during the season that I wasn't going to give his information away. Had some health issues, which caused him some setting lineup issues. So Greg only has 3 points of luck. He could have had 6. He gets 3 for the wins, 1 for a weekly high score, 1 for 2 wins in the losers bracket, 1 for beating a playoff team. And I forgot to mention when I did Rob Peace, he got a point for being the losers bracket champion. But anyway, 1 for beating a playoff team, and then lost 3 of those points for missing his lineup on 3 different weeks. So a bit of a rough season for Greg, not exactly what you want to see there. He also has the most to lose in this final run that we're going to make here because he is currently picking 8th. If he wins this last spot, he jumps from 8th all the way up to 3rd, plus knocks Kenny to 4th, which would be very hilariously interesting. Kenny already pissed that we're doing this on a day where he's not available. When you look at his keepers, Taylor, Greg has Josh Jacobs, Deebo Samuel, and then I think the young Jordan Addison. He does have Brock Purdy. I don't really trust Brock Purdy and Chris Godwin, and I just don't know how we feel about Chris Godwin. I think he's going to go with the younger players there. Josh Jacobs, the new running back in Green Bay, I think some new life breathed into him there. So what do you think about Greg's team, and how do you think? Do you think he pulls out this last lottery race?
I got the exact same 3 keepers you do: Deebo, Addison, and Josh Jacobs. I think Addison, he's just a young cat who kind of balled out, and it also raises that next question though: like, do you keep him with a new quarterback coming to town?
With Sam Darnold or a rookie?
Sam Darnold or a rookie. Like, I think he can still be productive, and with his options, I would probably just keep the youth over it. I mean, Brock Purdy does have some pretty consistent 24-point weeks, though, which is, definitely going to get you where you want to be for the most part.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'd like to see him win the draft or win the race this time, jump from 8th to 3rd. It makes it interesting. It makes it worth setting your lineup every week. Or, if he loses, maybe, he'll not set his lineup or whatever.
No, I think he's going to be absolutely fine next season. Dan, looking at that team, like I said, he could be looking at 6 points of luck, but health issues tore him down a little bit. Keepers are not exactly young outside of Jordan Addison, and he moving up to the 3rd pick, I think would be very advantageous for his team, I would say.
Absolutely.
Well, I understand he has stuff going on. I hope he doesn't. I'm sorry. You didn't set your lineup. You don't deserve 3rd pick. That's just how I feel. Love you. I'm glad. I hope everything's okay, man. But set your lineup. You don't deserve to win the lottery. That's like rooting for someone to win the lottery in real life. That's just a bad person to other people.
I'm not going to go that far. My man is on his deathbed and saying he's a bad person or competent.
I'm just comparing to real life. Like, I don't want to see some guy that's like a bird, like that breaks into people's houses and steals stuff, win $1 billion in the lottery.
He won't be breaking in.
The same thing. Like that feels winning that kind of lottery is just as important as winning our fantasy lottery.
Just as important.
Let's get to it. The final race, the race for 3rd place. If correct me if I'm wrong here. If Rob P or Mott's win, the winner will be the person in second place. If they're somehow first and second, the winner will be the person in third place. We are starting the final race for third pick. Here we go. So obviously Greg has the most to gain here. Greg has the 8th pick currently, could jump up to third. Phil in a similar situation, 7th pick could jump up to third. Dan is not in that situation. Dan is locked in with the 6th pick. Well, no, I guess he could jump into third. It would just help whoever has his pick. My apologies.
That'd be Kenny.
Who does have your pick in? Kenny. So Kenny, obviously, this is a big pick for Kenny, because if Dan wins this here, Kenny gets the 3rd and 4th pick versus having the 3rd and 7th pick. So Kenny would like to see Dan win this race more than he'd like to see himself win this race, because Kenny is going to get the 4th pick regardless. This is only moving it up 1 if it's his spot. Now, this
if I was a gambling man, I'm saying Stevie's winning this.
I say Stevie is running away with it, and I can't remember who that benefits. I'm trying to find it here. That would be Rob P. It benefits, which would be just really nice for him, because then he'd have the 1st and the 3rd.
Uh-oh.
Looks like he's got it.
Nope. Phil sneaking up from the back end.
Oh,
and Phil takes the 3rd pick, just beats Stevie out. Let me go ahead and update my document here. That is Phil with the 3rd. That keeps Greg at 8th. That moves Metzger's pick to 7th, which is Kenny's pick.
Kenny's at 4 and 7 now.
Yep. 6th is Stevie's pick, which is Rob P's pick. So he has 1st and 6th. And then Eric has the 5th pick, and Kenny has the 4th to go along with Metzger's pick of 4 and 7. That is the draft order. So just as a reminder for everybody, that will be Rob P with the 1st slot, Rob Motts with the 2nd slot, Phil with the 3rd slot, Kenny with the 4th, Eric with the 5th, Stevie with the 6th, even though he doesn't have his own pick, Metzger with the 7th, even though he doesn't have his own pick, Greg with the 8th, Terry at 9, JR at 10, because the 5th place game also gets the better pick now. So Terry at 9, JR at 10, Darren at 11, Ryan at 12, Horvath at 13, Taylor at 14 for winning that championship. You're definitely going to last. Guys, that is the first ever draft lottery in the MFL. Metzger, what are your thoughts after our first draft lottery?
Love it.
You love it?
I enjoy it. I love it. Enjoy it. Plus, takes away from the whole tanking, trying to lose on purpose.
Yep.
So that was the goal. Teams that all need help. Phil needs help. Both Robs needed help. It's going to benefit them. They both tried to win last year. All 3 of them tried to win last year. Just it fell short. I'm all for it.
No, I am as well. I said it before we did this. We need to make a decision. Do we want to help bad teams, which encourages tanking, or do we want to reward setting lineups? Those are the 2 most important things in this league, are setting lineups and trying to help teams get better. And I think setting lineups was the more important thing after we saw some tanking playoff implications the year before. Taylor, you happy with the draft lottery system?
Oh, I like it. I thought it was real fun. I can't wait to not be a part of it next year. It'll be awesome. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. I think it's pretty nice add to the league.
So who are you going to keep now since Fields is a backup quarterback?
Fields ain't a backup quarterback. They already said Russell Wilson could get cut, for 1. And 2, my team is just built.
Just signed him.
They just signed him.
For a year. But if Justin Fields beats him out, they could trade him off to somebody. I mean,
he is making league minimum. I don't see that happening.
We're talking the difference between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. We just got to see who looks better. They're both starting caliber quarterbacks in this league. I don't care what way you spin it. Like, Justin Fields in Pittsburgh could be great. He really could.
There's 32 teams that disagree with you on him being a starter, but go on.
I don't believe that. They took.
I just want to throw out there, even if he doesn't have Justin Fields, he has Tua, who is tied to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. He has his boy Cooper Kupp.
That's all I asked.
I got a handful of guys. I got Kieran Williams, Jamar Chase. I got David Njoku if I wanted. I got fucking Justin Fields. I'll keep anybody on my team because they all proved to be championship worthy. Shit, James Conner, look at him.
You're still considering keeping Justin Fields then?
Absolutely.
Ryan, you can't even keep a straight face.
Absolutely.
Keep in mind that I'm in a dynasty league where I'm also considering keeping Justin Fields, but it's a 32-team dynasty league and quarterbacks are at a premium. Not quite a 14-team where I can go out and get a quarterback anywhere I want. I think it's a terrible idea, Taylor, but That's up
Nobody
to you,
said
my
that's
friend.
what I'm doing. I'm just
I was
saying,
just-
I've
I was gonna say,
got options. That's all I know. I
he
mean, I'm
does in
good.
fact have options. Guys, if you have suggestions on how we can change the lottery to make it any different, any better, certainly not worse, drop them in the comments or DM me, text me, and I'll do my best to make it just a little bit better for you guys. That's the whole point, is keeping this league as fun as possible. I will get the draft order updated today so you guys will know what picks we're talking about. I may also put a draft date in. I'll just make it for the last day of August. That's not going to be the actual draft day, because I think if I put a draft day in, it will assign the picks properly, to make sure you guys can like trade those picks and we'll know what's going on. And I think it'll start showing keepers at that point. So we'll see how that goes. Dan, any parting words for our friends?
I love you guys. I miss you guys.
We'll do more shows. My dad can't die again this summer, so we will do some more shows as we are moving up towards the league start. Dan and I think we did one after the NFL draft last year, just to kind of talk about if these rookies were more important.
We did. Also, we're missing the most important thing. You finally look like a reasonable, respectable person again. So,
I trimmed it up. I tried to keep it for 1 year. So the week after the Super Bowl is when I grew it the week of the Super Bowl last year. So I trimmed it up. I was going to go a little bit longer than this, but turns out when you don't do anything to your hair for a full year, it comes out going every different direction. So it almost looked like I had a side part on my beard, and I was like, nope, I got to go a little bit shorter. So it's starting to grow back a little bit, but yes, I am a respectable member of society.
Yeah, it no longer looks like we're part of a homeless society of fantasy football.
I mean, it's already looking.
I personally liked it when it was long. It was dope.
My favorite part was all of my siblings, Taylor included, found pictures of me with no facial hair and said that we never need to see that again. Make sure you keep the beard moving forward.
Never, ever.
All right, guys, that is the show. If any of you guys ever want to join us, shoot a text. We're more than happy to have you. I promise you, it is not hard. If you've ever done a Zoom call, which I think all of us have at this point, you can do this show with us. We'll be back at some point, probably after the NFL draft. I'll get that draft order in the system as soon as we jump off here. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you soon.